Is it going? Hold on. Alrighty, welcome
Live.
back, y'all, to Behind the Wheel. This is episode 6 with a good friend of mine, Jason Honeycutt. I have not
Hey.
talked to you in a very, very long time, brother, and you're one of the very first people I met when I moved to Richmond.
Yeah, I'll never
And
forget hanging out at Texas Beats and jamming on guitar with you. It was good times.
Yeah, man, that was like back in 2013, I want to say. It was such a
What
long time
was
ago,
it?
and life happened, man. Things changed, and wow, I don't know. It's really, really awesome to be able to hop on here, flash forward like 13 years, and see that we went from crazy knuckleheads that were partying like crazy, and now flash forward 13 years to us really trying to navigate through life, and now we're focusing on healing and bettering ourselves. And that's why I asked you, my friend, to hop on here because I am so proud of you, of the work that you are doing, your Instagram page, the music that you've been posting, the positive messages. Man, the world needs more of that today. And I wanted to bring you on because I wanted to just ask what inspired you to do stuff like this? What is motivating you? And what advice could you give to other people that might be going through the same thing? So I'm going to go ahead, give you the floor, and we'll get to it. Let's go.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's not an easy story to tell. Really to really get to the nitty gritty of this, I kind of have to tell you the story of pretty much the worst night of my life. Um, would have been New Year's Eve, this past New Year's Eve. But to get into that, I kind of have to back it up just a little bit further. A few months prior, I reconnected with an old friend from college. She was in town for a show. We met up, hadn't seen each other in probably 15 years, and it was like no time had passed. Like someone dropped the needle on an old record. And it was really we actually ended up spending the next 4 days together exploring the river here at my property in Varina, and she went back to her homestead in Oregon. And about a week later, I reached out and I was like, "Hey, I gotta say, I gotta really miss you. I'm not used to this. This is kind of unusual." And she said, she was feeling the same way. So she had tickets to a show in Milwaukee. She said, "Hey, let's go to that. It's in a month. We'll do that." So we did. Again, had a great time. Really hit it off. Started talking every day on the phone, hours at a time. We really connected very quickly. And um, before long, decided, I had a surgery actually scheduled in January, and she tends to have free time in the winter. So she said, "Why don't I come spend the winter with you? I'll come out to Virginia and spend some time with you." And it was, started off great. We spent the first week up in Snowshoe. We did visited with each other's family. We did Christmas. We just had an amazing time. We're expressing, our love for one another, and things are going really well. Um, Now, even at this point, I'm still having some. I'm only realizing now. I'm looking back now. I was already starting to spiral a little bit. I already had some fears, some insecurities, um, but I was doing okay. Cut to New Year's, we get out to Widespread Panic in Atlanta. Spent the first couple nights there. Went to the shows and everything. I was pretty sick, and I would find out later that I actually had a infected tooth root, and that the infection
Wow.
had spread into my throat and was actually traveling up and causing some cognitive issues as well. So we're having a good time, but I'm pretty run down, and I'm really starting to kind of I mentioned before, it's kind of spiral a little bit. These insecurities started showing up. My partner, didn't go out and get medicine for me, and I thought, wow, what does that mean? Is she not compassionate? Is she not going to be a good caregiver? I went out to get it for myself, and this is on New Year's Eve. She had already said, you should probably take it easy, kind of lay low. Well, I went out to get medicine. I come back and she's on her way out the door with her backpack and she's going over to her friend's apartment for the night, And I thought, man, this person's just going to abandon me. She was just going to bail on me like that. I thought, wow, I wouldn't do that. If this is my friends, I would make sure that you were included. And she said, oh, I'm just going to go to the box office. And then I said, well, let me meet you down there. Let me set my stuff down, meet you down there. So a few minutes pass by. She calls and says, yeah, I'm just feeling like walking. I'm just going to head on over. So, okay, fine. So then I get a Uber and I go over, myself, and I just feel really out of place. And then, I'm a little distant. We start to go to the show. As I mentioned, I had a surgery coming up. I was sick. My knee was hurting me, and we're walking to the show. I was lagging behind. They're so excited, her and her friend are just rushing to get to the show. It's their favorite band, and I end up like a block behind them. And at this point, I'm just like, wow, like this person doesn't care about me. I'm looking, everything that I see looks like a red flag to me. And, I'm not considering any other option or any other explanation for any of these things, And so, we get to the show. Now we get separated at the show. We're separated for about an hour. I'm trying to reach out to her. She was partying too, so using the phone got a little bit difficult. I won't go too far into it, but suffice it to say that, you know, communication kind of broke down. And I, at some point, decided I was going to take some acid. Now, one of her friends had given me 3 gel tabs, and they stuck together. So I didn't realize I was taking 3 gel tabs. With this, I'm having fevers from the infection. Kind of spiraling over the relationship. Now I've gotten separated from my partner. I can't get in touch with her, and I start to really kind of slip into a very dangerous place, a very delusional place. I'm out on the patio. I'm trying to text her, and people are going, "Oh, you lost her," and just go with it, just go with it. And I'm like, "What's going on? Like, just go with what?" And this couple sits down, and this woman's saying, "Oh, me and my partner came here 10 years ago for our first show, and I remember, it was hard, but we made it through it. Just go with it." And I'm like, "Just go with what? What's going on here? What's happening?" And I really start to lose the threat of reality. I saw some guys that were in motorcycle vests and combat boots, and so I'm starting to think like those guys are white nationalists, and that this like, well, that's like a secret society, and you know I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I'm like, all right, I just need to get out of here. I gotta get out of here, so I'm like, start to head out. Well, as soon as I get up to leave, poof, there's my girlfriend. And I'm thinking, oh, something, they've been watching me. They knew that I was getting ready to leave, and now they sent her to come get me, and she's trying to take me upstairs to this room that I haven't been to yet, and I'm expecting that she's dragging me up to some eyes wide shut party, where I'm gonna have to watch my girlfriend get passed around like a joint at a Doobie Brothers concert, and I'm freaking out, and I'm going, I need to go down, I need to go outside. And she's like, well, you can't go outside, you can't get back in. And I'm like, yeah, I need to go down. And she said, well, you can't go down from here, like these only goes up. And I'm thinking, she's telling me that we've come too far at this point. If we try to go back, they won't let us. Like, I'm thinking they're gonna kill us. Like, I'm completely in worst case scenario mode. I'm sweating bullets. I'm just out of my gourd here, and I'm panicking. And so I'm pulling. She's trying to pull me upstairs. I'm trying to pull away to get out of the place. Eventually, the police get involved, and they say, "Ma'am, like, if he wants to go, you have to let him go." So she lets me go. I go back to the hotel room, and I kind of start to relax a little bit. And then New Year's Eve, midnight comes, fireworks start going off, sirens start going off. My partner's not responding. It's 1 o'clock. She's not responding. It's 2 o'clock. She's not. She's finally starting to respond. She's trying to get me to come downstairs, and I'm still in this, in this space where I'm just completely out of touch with reality at this point. And I think that the whole room is being monitored. I've got all the lights off. I'm in a closet with a folding knife drawn. I've got all the curtains closed. My phone is dying. going on social media and saying help, I'm at Widespread, they're coming upstairs. I mean, it was a mental break like I've never experienced. Now, I've heard of things like this happening, but nothing like, I've been in the music community for a long time, and I'm no stranger to psychedelics, but, with the additional stress, the fever, everything just compounded to just put me in this, really volatile headspace. And she didn't go back to their hotel, and that really fueled my delusions. So then I'm thinking, she's trying to lure me downstairs. If I don't go, they're going to come up here. They're just waiting for my phone to die. And the whole night gets really fuzzy. But I mean, I spent hours like that. I ended up not leaving the hotel room until around, sunrise, or around 6 or so. But somewhere in between that time, basically what I put together was that the band was a cult, that I was essentially lured there to be some sort of sacrificed, that they had separated me from this person that I loved so dearly, and that they were just doing these awful things. And I started to just destroy anything in the room that had to do with the band, and that turned into cutting up her t-shirts, her band t-shirts, her clothes that were in the closet. And I threw the stuff in the shower and turned the shower on it. And I honestly don't have a lot of recollection of the event, but this it really devastated me. I mean, later on especially, and I'll get to that, but immediately I was still under the impression that I was fighting for my life. I thought that these Nazis were going to come in at any moment, and I was going to definitely not survive, but I would be at least able to take a couple of them with me. So finally, I got in touch with a couple of people. Some people reached out. Friends saw the messages on Facebook, got concerned, reached out, and they were like, you just need to get out of there. You got to get out of there. So I was like, I can't. They're waiting for me. But eventually I called an Uber. I sneaked down the service stairwell to the garage with my knife drawn the whole way, just waiting for someone to pounce on me, and get into this Uber, go to an airport nearby, and somehow I'm able to convince them to rent me a car, and I start driving back. About halfway home, it really starts to hit me like, what's going on? For the first half of the drive, I'm looking over my shoulder every time I see a motorcycle. I think it's them. I'm still completely paranoid and panicked. But about halfway through, it really sinks in what I've done, what happened. And so I reach out and I let her know, hey, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I trashed the hotel, like your stuff in the room. Like I sent her, $3,000 to cover it, the damages and stuff. And I was like, I understand you probably never want to see me again. I don't know, I don't know what happened. She does actually come back to the house. After a couple days, she comes back, and we spend about the next month just trying to figure out what happened, trying to make it work, because we do care, about each other very much. And she cared enough to say, like, something happened here. Something's going on that needs to be addressed. And that was really that was the first time that I opened up in probably 30 years. And I mean, I wept with her over the things that I had done, the pain that I caused her. Um, you know, I was in sort of in panic mode, though. I mean, honestly, I was operating from a place of desperation. I was so afraid of being abandoned. I was so ashamed of what I had done and so remorseful over what I'd done, that all I really could do was try to fix it. And that wasn't what she needed. What she needed was to be understood. You know, for me to ask questions like, what was it like for you when you walked into that hotel room? What was the ride back like for you? Do you feel safe with me? But I didn't have these tools yet. I didn't, at this point, I couldn't see past my own pain. So we went hot, cold for about a month. One day she would say, I'm so proud of us, for meeting, and thank you for meeting me in this space. I'm so proud of us for the work we're doing. Oh, this could only happen with you. And then the next day she's saying there's a distance growing between us that's not going to go away with time. And ultimately, on the 12th of February, she packed up and headed back to Oregon, which honestly was not the only choice, but it was a very difficult choice, and it was the kindest thing that she could have done, probably that anyone's ever done for me. Because I mean, once she left, I felt that I hit rock bottom. Um, I I was in so much grief and so much pain that I said, I don't have anything left to lose. Like it's time. It's time for me to face these fears and these demons that I've been running from for the last 30 years. I lost my dad in my 20s. I lost my best friend the same year. I've lost soldiers that I trained to suicide and to enemy fire, but I never felt grief like this. And it was because I think I was feeling all of that for the first time. When I opened up to her to let her know how disappointed I was in myself and just how terrible I felt, when I opened up that door, everything else came out. And for the first time, I was grieving, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, um, you know, some pretty crazy military stuff that went down, and just things that I had been just going, whenever these things would come up, I would say, I can't deal with this right now. I would just think something else. Just let's do, well, we're not going to do that right now. Maybe I would go out and have a drink, or I would do something, um, to keep my mind from that place. My protective self was trying to keep me away from those core wounds, to keep me from being hurt. But in reality, it was just everything was just festering. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I came across cognitive behavioral therapy. That was the first step, really, for me to understanding what my trauma had done to me. That my complex trauma had really shut down my ability to trust. Um, I I made a list, reached out to my mom, and started, asking questions, uncomfortable questions about my childhood. And really, I thought that I was at rock bottom when she left, but I didn't realize how much further I could go. The things that I learned when I asked those questions really, really kind of broke me. But Carl Jung has a quote, and he says that until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life, and you'll call it fate. And that really struck a nerve with me. Um, it was it was evident for the first time that I had all this pain from a life, a life of trauma, from an ex that, I was in a bad relationship prior to this one. My ex cheated on me. She was financially and emotionally abusive, and I internalized a lot of those things, and it kind of made me a runner when I got into this new relationship. They always say, um, "Love like you've never been hurt." That's asking, that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and it was something that I wasn't doing. I was, when my partner was, walking ahead of me, I was thinking, I was kind of fortune telling, like, what does this say about her? What does this say about our future? Um, and instead of thinking, oh, she's excited, it's New Year's Eve, she's on her way to see her favorite band. This isn't about you. This isn't about me. She's just excited. And what I found is interesting is, for a lot of the conflicts in our life, there's a lot of explanations, a lot of potential explanations. But if you list all of those explanations, and then you look at the one that you're most afraid of, that's usually the one that you're going to jump to. Um, I've had insecurity about my body because of injuries, and so when I couldn't keep up with them, it made me feel old. It made me feel impotent. My ex cheating on me made me feel impotent. Made me feel like anyone could do that to me at any time, and therefore, it's not safe to open up and trust anyone. So nobody gets to start with a clean slate. Everybody that I, engage with has to start from behind the trauma that was caused by my previous partner or by my, you know, childhood. And so it was really just a matter of sitting with those feelings instead of running from them. Um, at first, it was very difficult because it was overwhelming. I would, double over and just sob. It was hard for me to go to work. It was hard for me to, do anything. I mean, I would literally be eating and sobbing because they still got to eat, and I would,
Mhm.
but luckily I have really great friends, and I would just call my friend and say, hey, I've got to come over, and I would just go and just weep on their couch, and talk to them a little bit about what I was feeling, but really just having somebody there, um, and knowing that, it's going to be okay. It's just hard right now. But the the most valuable lesson that I've learned really is just to sit with my pain, to sit with my anxiety, to sit with my fear, to acknowledge it, um, not to let it control my actions or my behaviors, but just say, okay, this is this is real, this is valid, this isn't true, these things aren't true about you, but it is, these are your insecurities, this is a part of you that you're going to have to learn how to live with.
Mm.
So I've really run the gamut these last couple months on healthy coping mechanisms. I have been sober since New Year's Eve. I yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing Tai Chi. I'm on a more of a calisthenics based exercise program that I can do from home, which allows me to do it every day. So I'm on that routine. I've started cultivating my land. I'm farming, something that I, had wanted to do for a long time. But in my last relationship, my unhealthy relationship with my ex, she really started kind of taking over that and making it her
Mm.
thing, and I just really started to resent it. And it
Mm.
was a part of myself that I had given up. Homesteading to me has always been, just being independent and being resourceful and being less dependent on these structures, outside of what I can control. Um, it has always been appealing to me, but I let myself. I told myself it wasn't. I convinced myself that it wasn't because I had painful connections to it, um,
Mm.
and I started seeing things like that come up more and more. Um, One insecurity that I have, and I think a lot of guys my age have this, and I've talked to a few guys that I know do. Guys that are my age that don't have kids, it's like, oh, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I ever accidentally have a kid? Everybody's always getting, pregnant on accident. Am I infertile? Does that mean that I'm not, healthy or
Mm.
whatever? And, because of that, I kind of told myself, well, that's not really important to me. I don't really, that's not something that really matters one way or the other. But I mean, the truth is that does matter to me. It is something that I would like to have. And if that happens or not, it's not important. But what's important is that I acknowledge that it is important to me. And
Yeah.
just by acknowledging these things and saying, okay, this is how I actually feel about it. There's so many of these little slogans and sayings that we've used, year after year, like, know thyself and to thine own self be true. I've said that a million times, and I always sort of took it to mean like, know what you like, and don't bother doing things that you don't like. Stick with what you like. But the very first line is couldn't be more important, to know yourself. Take the time to get to know who you are, who you're not. You know, the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are aren't always true. I've been told that I'm good in short distances, or I hammer in nails halfway. And I believe that, for a long time. But that isn't true. That's just something that I've been told. That's something that I told myself. And I've allowed that to become my identity. When in reality, I control that. We all control, our own discipline, our own destiny. So, it's really been, it's a roller coaster. Anybody who's gone through this will tell you that healing is not, it's not a straight line. Grief, the stages of grief are not a straight line. One day,
Mm.
I'm thinking, oh, I got my leg over this. I'm good. I'll reach out to my sister and say, hey, I'm good now. I appreciate your support, but I got this. And then, a couple of days later, you just get hit again with the waves of anxiety and
Oh, yeah.
grief. And but that is an indication that the work is working, especially if you're someone who has not felt these things for a long time, who hasn't allowed themselves to feel. If you're finally feeling sad, anxious, afraid, instead of numb, that's an indication that you're getting close to your core wounds, that the work is working, and that you just have to stay the course. So yeah, I appreciate having the opportunity to come and talk about these things, because I do think it's so important, to be able to communicate, to have a community, and people have been so supportive. We talked about the Instagram page. I've had people reach out to me on direct messaging and just say, hey, I've actually been kind of going through a tough time, and we're hanging out, going on bike rides, and getting together and playing music, or just talking about what we're doing to deal with it. People are recommending books. I've gotten into shadow work recently, and that's something that was recommended through one of the posts that I put up, and so it's just been, it's been a real roller coaster, but the community and things like this have just been so helpful.
That is fantastic, man. Wow. Listening to your story, I mean, I've been there before, man. Like right before I hit my rock bottom, I mean, I wasn't like I had stayed up for days, multiple times in a row. I was using drugs and alcohol along with like psychedelics, and I don't know, man. I just went downhill real quick, and it amazes me that like it was right after that, after I realized that I had enough. That gift of desperation really led me, lasted me to like this healing journey, and I love seeing other people do stuff like this because it is possible,
Yeah,
and I love meeting other inspirational people and like, brother, just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like
I
for real,
appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah, not a
Yeah, you
problem,
said
man.
that, the gift of desperation. I really like that, because that's the thing, is when things like this happen, when tragedy strikes, we feel like, oh, why did this happen to me? Why not? Why now? But the reality is, it's it's probably the best thing that could have happened. I mean, it's
Mhm.
terrible that it had to get that far, but the fact that something finally came along that shook you enough to change is so valuable.
Right, right, man, and I'm grateful for it every day for sure because if I can look back, it gives me inspiration, to
Well, you've
see
been
from
an
where I
inspiration.
was.
Yeah, you
Oh,
have been
thanks,
an
man.
inspiration. Watching your journey and watching you, playing music all over the country and traveling around with Bella is just, it really is inspirational. So I really appreciate your sharing
Thank
your
you.
journey as well.
Absolutely, man. And hey, listen, y'all, if you are on Instagram, make sure you follow this man or also follow Behind the Wheel. Um, and was it make, and then it's
Me,
underscore
it's
me
me,
underscore whole.
me make me whole.
There
Me
we go.
underscore
So you
me,
look him
yeah.
up.
Me underscore make underscore me underscore whole. Me make me whole.
Gotcha. I follow him because he's got some really awesome things on there. Some coping mechanisms, some books to read, some I don't know, some really awesome stuff. So thank you so much, Jason, for coming on here. And I know your story helped a lot of people. So continue to do your thing. And until next time, tune in to. Hold on one second. Gotta be cheesy. Let me find it real quick. Here we go. Tune in to Behind the Wheel. All right. Love you guys so much. Until next time, y'all.
Thank you.
All right, hold on. Yeah. Let's stop the recording somehow. How do